Hello. Thank you so much for joining me for Advocacy 101, Techniques to Make a Difference, a presentation by Disability EmpowHer Network in collaboration with Spina Bifida Association. So today I want to talk to you about why we should advocate, techniques for advocacy, options for legislative advocacy, and tips and tricks to help you advocate. A little about me before we get started. My name is Stephanie Woodward. I am a lawyer and I'm an executive director of Disability EmpowHer Network, an organization run by and for girls and women with disabilities to help disabled girls and women live their lives to the fullest potential and have the confidence to lead. And I work to help lots of people learn about advocacy. In fact, on the picture here today is an image of me wearing my glasses and a t-shirt that says Disabled Women Make History. And to the right of that on this slide is a picture of our EmpowHer Camp class of 2022. EmpowHer Camp is a program that we run for teenage girls with disabilities, where we take them camping, work on a project with them all year round, and then we bring them to Washington, D.C., where they actually go and meet with their senators and talk about their projects, how it impacts the world, and why disabled women should be in charge of decisions in our lives. So advocating is not that scary. We can get teenage girls to do it all the time. And they are powerful voices, and I bet your voice is powerful as well. So enough about me. Let's jump in. Let's start with why. Why advocate to begin with? Well, have you ever had a problem with getting affordable, accessible, integrated housing? Have you ever had issues getting the wheelchairs or crutches or other complex rehab technology or medical equipment that you need? Have you had troubles getting and keeping a job? Or maybe accessibility in public venues such as stores or even government offices? What about just finding accessible parking? Have you gone to a parking lot that didn't even have accessible parking? Or perhaps have you had any issues finding a doctor who understands your disability and your needs? I know I have. Finding any doctor that knows anything about spina bifida has been an impossible task for me. So have you had issues with any of these? Or maybe you've had issues with something entirely different. Well, if you have, then what can you do about it? You could accept the inaccessibility. You can accept the discrimination that you experience. You could conform to the demands of the non-disabled majority, or you can advocate for change. And that choice is completely up to you. If you don't want to do anything, you don't have to. But if you want to do something about it, then let's talk about what we can do. Let's talk about why it's important for you to advocate, not other people, but specifically you. Well, when it comes to issues around spina bifida or around disability in general, we are the experts. We know what we want and we know what we need. And if we don't speak for ourselves, other people are going to speak for us. And those other people are not people with disabilities generally. They're not people with spina bifida. They're usually doctors or researchers or professionals that support disabled people, or perhaps even parents. And while all of these people have a place and a voice in advocacy, none of them are you. None of them are us. We should be speaking for what we need, because if we let other people speak for us, they may not have the same interests that we have, which is why it's really important when I talk about nothing about us without us. That means even advocacy about disability issues should not be happening unless people with disabilities are leading those advocacy meetings and those strategies. So that's why it's important for you to advocate. It's also really important because as much data and statistics are out there, data and statistics do not tell a personal story. You have a personal story, and your story matters. If elected officials don't hear from us, they may think that our issues aren't important because they care about what their constituents are bringing to them. If we don't bring the issues to them, how will they know? If no one is writing or calling them about the concerns or meeting with them, then they don't have to address those concerns because they don't know they exist. You are the person that can help elevate issues at a local, statewide, and national level by communicating to your elected officials. So let's keep going. Why advocate? Advocacy is not just for radicals or for loud people or those other people over there. And I will admit to you, I am a very loud person. I may be seen as a radical person. I have been arrested 30 times fighting for disability rights. But for every time that I've been arrested, I have been in a meeting with a senator or their staff or a congressperson 10 times over. I am a radical and I go to the extremes, but only when it's necessary. We don't get to the extremes until things get really bad. But we can prevent things from getting very bad if we all work together to advocate in other ways, such as letter writing, meetings, and I'll get into that a little bit further. But I just want to emphasize that advocacy is for everyone, and your voice truly does make a difference. When we talk about advocacy, regular contact is essential. Meet your representatives, meet your congresspeople, let them get to know you. Do it more than once, because if they get to know you, they'll get to trust you, you'll have that relationship, and you'll have more influence. And I can't stress enough that one person or small group of dedicated people really can result in the development of policy and law. I have been a part of very small groups of people who have resulted in big change, and you can be a part of that too. So, what are some different techniques that we can use? These are the techniques that I use, and they are in absolutely no particular order. Advocacy techniques involving the media, involving legal pursuits, involving legislative advocacy, administrative advocacy, and direct action. And I would love to talk to you about all of those, but we have a limited time today. So if you want to learn more about any of these other types of advocacy, please reach out to the Spina Bifida Association and tell them you want to learn more, and maybe they'll give me a call so that we can do this again. But let's focus on legislative advocacy today. So what is legislative advocacy? Let's just start there. What is it? Well, it's influencing elected officials and their staff to affect public policy through phone calls, visits, emails, and even social media. And an elected official can be on any level. It could be local. It could be your school board. It could be your mayor. It could be statewide. It could be your governor. Or it can be national, such as your Congress members. I want to point out to you that advocacy and lobbying are not the same thing, but they can overlap sometimes. The specific definition for lobbying involves stating or influencing others to state an opinion on specific legislation. So advocacy can be that you're advocating for something to be more accessible, whereas lobbying would be if there's a specific bill that you are asking your Congress member to sign on to. So there's a bit of a difference there. And both of them are fantastic. There's nothing bad about lobbying, and there's absolutely nothing bad about advocacy. So what are some best practices when it comes to legislative advocacy? I love calling offices. I like writing letters. I really love office visits. And in this case, I'm talking about national legislative advocacy. So office visits can be locally in your state or in Washington, D.C. They're both effective and they both matter very much. And also using the media and social media. So I'm going to just bring a little bit of that media arm that I had talked about as a form of advocacy and talk about how it can be coupled with legislative advocacy. So let's talk about calling the office. This is a very straightforward thing. Your calls do make a difference. I can't stress this enough. I've worked for two different senators. I've worked for Senator Tom Harkin of Iowa. He's actually the senator who introduced the Americans with Disabilities Act. So he's very important and holds a near and dear place in my heart. I've also worked for Senator Schumer. I worked at the front lines, and I can tell you, I was the person picking up the phone. I heard the phone calls coming in. Every single call gets noted. I put every single call into the system. I took what people told me and I made sure that it was collected so that we knew what our callers cared about. Why I also love calling an office is that you can create a script in advance, which is amazing if you fear public speaking. You can literally write out what you want to say. Hi, my name is blank. I'm calling today because of, fill it in. I want you to support this bill. I want you to oppose this bill. I'm a person with a disability, and this issue impacts my life in these ways. So there's lots of ways that you can create a script in advance. I love it a lot. And I want you to be like, really just know that your party affiliation doesn't matter. You don't even have to tell the staff person your party affiliation. You can just say you're a constituent. So if you're worried that, like, oh, my senator doesn't care because he's a different party than me, it doesn't matter. If she is a different party than you, if you're a constituent, your voice matters. So I want that to be very clear. If you don't know who the person is to call, we can definitely connect you with the right people. Reach out to Spina Bifida Association, and they can help you figure out the elected officials that you can reach out to. Now let's talk about writing letters. Your letters, just like your calls, really do make a difference. Every single letter gets read. I was the person that had to read the letters. I had to summarize them. I had to put them into our system. They get read. I promise you, and I promise you they make a difference. In letters, you can share in-depth details. So it can go a little bit more than what you would say on a phone call. You can also take more time to write it out. You can edit it. You can have a friend look at it and give you feedback. What I love about letters is that you can also include pictures. Pictures really do help to tell a story. So whether you are emailing your letter or printing it out and sending it in the mail, think about how you can add visuals to really make your letter stand out, make it really add to the story, and make it more compelling. Um, I said you can send it via mail or email. Just a quick pro tip, keep a copy for yourself. So if you are sending it via postal mail, just make a copy for yourself in case they do call you and they want to talk about what you said in your letter. You'll be able to know what you actually said, because sometimes they don't contact you for months, and then you might not remember what you said. And this also counts for things like action alerts. You may receive an action alert from, let's say, the Spina Bifida Association saying, hey, click here to write a letter to your congressperson. And sometimes you just type in your zip code. They'll know then who the email should go to. And then you can fill it out with your information and also really customize and personalize it. That makes a difference too. And that would fall under this category. So don't think that things like that don't make a difference, because they do. All right, now let's get into the nitty-gritty of office visits. I love a good office visit. I hope that you will love an office visit. I really do hope that you'll give an office visit a chance. So let's just talk about the basics. If you're going to have an office visit, whether it is at your local office or in Washington, D.C., make an appointment in advance. Well, drop-ins do happen. Oftentimes you won't be able to talk to a person that can make a difference, even if anyone is available. So if you want to talk to someone, either your actual congressperson or their staff, make an appointment. And it's not uncommon for your representative to not actually meet directly with you. They have a lot of things they do in a day. Meeting with a staff person is not a bad thing. In fact, they have a lot of influence. So don't be offended if you get an appointment with a staff person. Once you have that appointment, make sure you show up on time. You want to make a good impression. Be on time for your meetings. Your time is valuable, and so is the person that you're meeting with. I always say bring paperwork to share. So what I like to do is have a one pager, is what I call it. So something that summarizes what you want to talk about. Sometimes it can be on the front and back, sometimes just on the front of the piece of paper. But having that summary of what you want to talk about can be really helpful. It allows you to have what we call a leave behind, where you are leaving behind this information so that the person doesn't just have to take notes on what you've said during the meeting. They really have exactly what you care about written in your words or the organization that you're working with, so that they can refer back to it. You really want to try to connect with that staff person when you're meeting with them. So don't just like read off the paper or anything like that. Really try to share your story, engage with them. Maybe you can find a point where you have something in common. If you're talking about, let's say, you needing access to medical equipment. They might not use medical equipment, but I bet there's someone in their life that does. Maybe an aunt or a grandparent or a friend. See if you can connect in some way. I like to always say, have an ask. And that means, why are you meeting with them? What are you trying to change? What is it that you are advocating for. So have that ask. Is that ask, I want you to support this bill, or I want you to sign on to this. I want you to support funding for this issue. Make sure you know what you're asking. And then after the meeting, follow up. I always like to send a quick email. Thank you so much for meeting with me and talking to me about blank. Remind them what you talked about. And then ask them if they need anything, if you can help with moving the issue forward. So that's just the basics, but I know that I used to have anxiety about this. Like when I go into a meeting, what do I do? What do I say? So let's talk about really step by step. What are you doing in this meeting? First, you're going to tell them who you are. What is your name? Do you have a title? Are you a volunteer? Are you an advocate? Do you work for a certain organization? So who are you? Are you a person with spina bifida and you're talking about spina bifida issues? Because that would be something important to mention. If you're coming to talk about spina bifida funding, it'd be really great if you mentioned, by the way, I also have spina bifida. This impacts me personally. Talk about where you're from. Because if you are talking to a office that represents your area, whether it's your state or your district, you want them to know where you're from. Talk about what you want, those asks. Is it a bill you want them to support? Is it funding? What is it? Talk about why you need it. How does it impact you personally? Those personal stories make a huge difference. When do you need it done by? Is there a deadline? Give them the timing. And then offer to help them, offer that to be a resource to them, and then thank them for their time. So I'm going to give you a real quick and dirty example of how I do this. Sometimes I advocate for appropriate funding for wheelchairs because my husband and I both use wheelchairs. So what I'll say is, hi, I'm Stephanie Woodward. I am a disability rights advocate. I am a wheelchair user. I've been a wheelchair user my whole life, and I'm married to a wheelchair user. I'm from Rochester, New York, and that matters because let's say I'm meeting with Senator Schumer, who is my state senator. And what do I want? I'm concerned because power wheelchairs get reimbursement at a different rate than manual wheelchairs. This matters to me because me and my husband have the exact same disability, but we use two different wheelchairs. I use a power wheelchair. He uses a manual wheelchair. And as a result, I am able to get what I need much easier than he is. And that's not fair because we are two people with the exact same disability. And yet, because we use two different modes of wheelchairs, one of us can access what we need to live and be productive in our communities and live a successful, happy life. And one of us is struggling every single day. That doesn't work. It makes both of our lives harder, and nobody should have to work this hard to get the technology that they need to live. And for that reason, I really want you to sign on to this bill, which will make it easier to get reimbursement for manual wheelchairs as well. Right now, we're looking for sign-ons within the next 2 weeks. You can reach out to this senator to sign on to the bill. And I'm happy to help you if you have questions about how this impacts our lives. If you need to hear from more wheelchair users, please let me know. I am happy to connect you with others to share their stories or help you in any other way. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I hope that this has been an enlightening conversation with you. I've really enjoyed meeting with you. And please, again, feel free to reach out to me if I can help in any way. So that's a very fast summary. Obviously, if a meeting is going to be 30 minutes, it wouldn't go that quickly, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how a meeting can go. So let's just talk about who is who when we're meeting. We have a chart over here, and at the very top is your member of Congress. So as I said, you may not get a meeting with them. They are really overscheduled. If you do get a meeting with them, that is fantastic and good for you. Get their attention, yeah. But it's not uncommon for them maybe to show up halfway through a meeting or leave before the meeting is over, or perhaps not even be at the meeting at all. After that, we have the chief of staff. So the chief of staff is really got a tight bond with their member of Congress. They can speak to for the member, to the constituents. They've got a lot of power, and definitely don't be offended. Be pretty excited if you can get a meeting with the chief of staff. But also the legislative director and the legislative assistants are really important and impactful. They can meet and talk with you about specific issues. Sometimes I speak with a legislative director if they're focused on a specific issue like healthcare. Legislative assistants can sometimes be young, so you can be educating them. They may be new to these issues. Actually, no matter what their age is, whether it's a legislative assistant, legislative director, or chief of staff, they may all be new to the issue. So don't feel like you are offending them if you give them a 101 version of what you're talking about. There's also legislative correspondents and staff assistants. They are oftentimes recent college graduates. And I just want to be clear that staffers sometimes have more time to devote to meetings. They are very capable of meeting with you. And sometimes you get further when you are talking to a staffer because they do have more time to communicate with you, to understand the issues and move them forward. So please don't think that something is wrong if you don't get to meet with a member of Congress. Staff people are incredible and they can move your issues forward. So let's talk a little bit about how we can use media and social media to help with an issue. Let's say it's that wheelchair issue I was just talking about. You can post on social media about it. Tell your personal followers how they can help. Ask your friends and family on social media to reach out to your members of Congress. And also, if you're talking about this issue, feel free to tag your member of Congress. If you're posting on it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, tag your member of Congress so they can see the issue that's happening. But also, don't be afraid to ask your followers to get involved as well. Use images and videos. I can't tell you how compelling it is, how it can catch attention. A written post is great, but oftentimes does not grab as much attention as a video or an image will. So visuals help to tell stories. They help to connect with others. I like to use visuals all of the time. Sometimes I will even bring in a picture of my husband when I'm talking about this power wheelchair versus manual wheelchair issue. I will say, look at us. We're a married couple, same disability. My wheelchair versus his wheelchair. Why are we not making it easy for both of us to get what we need? The visuals really do make a difference and it really humanizes things. And share your issues with news outlets. There's lots of ways to do that. You can tag news outlets in the stories that you post. You can write straight to your news outlets, whether it is radio or print newspaper or your local TV stations. You can also write op-eds. There's lots of ways to engage in your local news outlets. And if you want to learn more about this and media as a form of advocacy, again, reach out to the Spina Bifida Association and say, I want to learn more. And we'll try to cover that topic for you as well. So now what? We've gone through this pretty quick. If you need more information, reach out to the Spina Bifida Association, or you can reach out to Disability EmpowHer Network. I'm always here to help. But go use what you've learned here today. Please don't let this have just been a waste of your time. Go use this information to advocate. Call your offices, write those letters, get those meetings. If you are looking for an opportunity to advocate, reach out to the Spina Bifida Association. Every year they do Teal on the Hill, and they can definitely use more advocates to help them out. But make sure that you are feeling confident in your ability to articulate the issues and influence the outcome. And if you're not feeling confident, that's okay. Fake it till you make it. A lot of us go into this feeling nervous and unsure. That doesn't mean you shouldn't advocate. I am confident in you. If you're not confident in you, that's okay. Do it anyway, because I know you're going to kill it. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you have a great day. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out. Bye now.